But I got in touch with you through Mr. Matt Cutler, who came on here and talked about some, I mean, for lack of a better formal phrase, some fuckery around medals and awarding of them between different branches of the armed forces. And this is kind of another story in that same theme of it's not all what you think it is, and it's not necessarily or at all in some like tree hugging anti-Vietnam, like you're a baby killer, and it's a bunch of poor guys that got drafted coming back. Like, dude, I didn't want to go. It's not that at all. It's more of one group of fighters is allegedly taking credit and thus the honor of what another group of people did. So it's not screw them. It's like, hey, they're taking from them. Um, that is about the ceiling of my understanding of this topic, which, spoiler alert, that's about all I know for anything I go into. The show I go into, it's always just I push the ball down the hill and go, I wonder where it's going to go. And sometimes the guest is like, what are we doing this show? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I just I start the car, put a brick on the gas pedal, and then I get in the back seat with you, and I'm like, I wonder if it's gonna crash, like. So for better or worse, that's what we're doing. But Rob, tell everyone who you are and kind of what we're going into today.
Well, first off, you're in good hands. I'm not going to let it crash. So, my name is Rob Harrison. I'm a retired Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force. I spent about 26 years in the service. I spent the majority of my time doing airborne reconnaissance and then migrated over to direct support to special operations on the Air Force side. Um, that brought me, into flying things like the AC-130 gunships. I flew on MC-130 Talons. Um, I got a chance to crew on the MH-53 Pavlos, CD-22 Ospreys. You name it, I've probably flown it if it was in the SOF Air Force arsenal.
You piloted
Um,
it,
no,
or did you flew
air
on?
crew in the back.
Got it.
Yeah, so
It's
I'm
still
an
wild, yeah.
intelligence specialist.
Okay,
They would consider me a sensor type
ISR guy.
capability on the aircraft. Exactly. So when the reason why I come out and I talk about this is because I happened to be present the night of the battle at Talker Gar. The Navy, named that Roberts Ridge for Petty Officer Neil Roberts, who fell out of the back of Razor Zero Three, an MH-47 that was infilling the Mako team, a SEAL team that had embedded within a combat controller by the name of Air Force Master Sergeant John Chapman. John Chapman and Britt Slavinsky, the team leader, who at the time was a senior chief, they were both originally awarded their respective service crosses. So John was awarded an Air Force Cross. Slab, as he's known, was awarded a Navy Cross. Fast forward 15 years or so. This is the event happens on the period of darkness 3 to 4 March of 2002. And then all the way up until 2018 is when the Medals of Honor were actually upgraded for both individuals. And that's where this story kind of takes a bit of a turn because for years and years and years there were questions about what exactly happened up there on the mountain. There was a lot of initial understanding, and then there was a ton of information that came to light, started coming out around the 2014 time period when the Air Force kicked off an initial research team. Happened to be conducted by one of my old chiefs, who was a mentor of mine. His name was Frank Daly, and he was, deployed in the theater when all of this went down, just as I was. He was on the ground, in a talk as an intel analyst, while I was a deployed aircrew member on board AC-130H Spectre gunship, call sign Grim 32, and we happened to be overhead when the Battle of Takur Gar went down. So the let me give you kind of an overview of what went on with the mission, and then I can get into essentially what has become the points of contention since. It ultimately, if you do like a bottom line up front, right now what you have are elements of stolen valor on behalf of the Navy and Britt Slavinsky of John Chapman. And then you kind of have a significant degradation of John's legacy and the level of valor that he actually displayed that night, which was amazing, as you'll come to know as we go through this story.
Uh,
So
uh,
when all that happened, the reason why this is manifested most recently is on Medal of Honor Day, March 25th, 2025, the National Medal of Honor Museum in Arlington, Texas opened up. And during that initial opening, the museum is beautiful. It's wonderful. It stands for, just an amazing, an amazing belief and, uh, instance of, American patriotism and, honor and courage and commitment and all of those things that we hold dear. So, the museum has this goal to inspire America, the next generation, but when they opened up, they have so much real estate, only so much real estate in the museum. So they did dedicated displays to certain Medal of Honor recipients. There's in all, more than 3,400. So like in one particular building, you couldn't do a dedicated display to every single one. Well, what happened in this case is Britt Slavinsky has now found himself, on the board of the National Medal of Honor Museum. And there's essentially a huge montage, ode to Brent Slavinsky there at the museum. And it's right next to Audie Murphy and Roy Benavidez. Across from that on the wall is a picture of John and a 24-inch monitor silent video running in a constant loop. It's about a 2-minute loop that just shows the actions.
mhm.
And it has the subtitle, the caption over that video monitor is the fact that this was, in essence, the first one where ISR predator footage was, used for the eyewitness account of his actions.
Captured
So
the actual Medal of Honor kind of thing.
yeah, so it's kind of small, and then you look across, and then Brett Sabinsky has this huge table, and his stuff is so big that it spills off into a second display. It's a big upright case with uniforms and artifacts and so on. And on his display, there's no mention of John Chapman or an association of the two, even though they both earned the Medal of Honor in the same battle. So it mentions John by name, just first name only, as it mentions the other 6 fallen members from that particular battle. And it's a quote from Slab saying, "Hey, I wear this to honor those that we lost," and he names all 7 by their first name. So um, the reason why there was an issue with that is that when they were doing the planning for the museum, um, some staff members on the museum had originally contacted John's sister, Lori Longford Chapman. She's Chapman Longford, excuse me. She's the co-author of the book Alone at Dawn with Dan Schilling, and it's probably, the most detailed account of what happened that evening. So if listeners, viewers haven't read that book, I highly recommend it. It's amazing. So the staff had reached out to Lori and explained that they planned to do a dedicated display in honor of John when the museum opened. Well, fast forward, she hadn't heard anything as they were getting into that final 6 months or so. She had reached back out to the museum, and lo and behold, the plan has changed. And so now there's a dedicated display to Slab. There's no dedicated display to John Chapman, who is literally the only Medal of Honor recipient since Vietnam for the Air Force. So,
Jeez.
and the fact that there's such significance in the and so much data that actually can show, and you could literally put the whole thing out, just like the silent video clip. There's narrations to them and so on. Like there would have been so much that they could have displayed there, and the family was willing to donate artifacts and so on. So when that happened, Lori was obviously taken back by all of that, and it was just one of those big, what the hell moments. Like I can't believe that they elevated this guy and didn't speak to John, and that'll be the reason why that question comes up will be evident here as we go through the mission itself. So that's kind of the setup. The Medal of Honor Museum took a turn, and when they did not display John, and the way they did display Slab, uh, and you go back and you look at the videos and the things, now that he's at the top of that platform with the museum itself, he does all these speaking engagements and so on. And the Navy, when we were upgrading Chapman's medal, when we were going through all the research and the approval process to get it upgraded to a Medal of Honor, the Navy pushed back. They were only good with John's Medal of Honor upgrade up to the point that we already knew for his specific service cross. And that's the reason why this became an issue, because the service cross citation stopped at the initial assault of the first bunker that we'll get into. Well, the evidence showed that John survived that initial engagement and continued to fight up there for about an hour and 20 minutes by himself after the SEALs were essentially at a tactical disadvantage, had multiple teammates wounded, and they made the decision to tactically retreat off the mountain. Well, in doing so, they never captured, or they never recovered Petty Officer Roberts, and then they left John Chapman there inadvertently. Like, I'll be absolutely clear, like, they didn't do it on purpose,
Sure.
but a man was left behind, and it turned out he wasn't dead. And then all of his actions were then captured on footage that we were finally able to recover and go back and review, and we could see everything that he actually did. And so that became known as what we call material finding two, the extension of John's battle up there by himself. And so the Navy, from the moment that there's an idea that they left somebody behind, they were never cool with that. And I can understand
Yeah, you sure
some pushback.
probably feel like shit. You're like, yeah, that
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it was never done on purpose,
exactly. So it's
by the
it's like
team by any means,
it's like the worst
but it's a
possible
fact of
mistake, and
of
you,
what happened.
yeah,
And
no,
so now you move forward, and you've got Britt sitting at the top of this pedestal with this platform. He lived through the battle. He survived. He wears the medal. He does the speaking engagements, and he continually pushes what we coined as the Navy's counter narrative to the Air Force's research. And they consistently say that John died within the first 3 minutes of the battle. And it's flat out not true. It's irrefutable. We have verifiable evidence. Hell, John was awarded his Medal of Honor for this reason. So it's a stain on them. I think it's a foul. I think it's dishonest. I think it's dishonorable. It's a crying shame, is what it is. And so I want the truth to be known and understood in its totality, and I want to try and get these guys to do the right thing. Honor John appropriately and stop stealing his valor. So there's your elongated setup. So Battle of Takur Gar, if you're not familiar, this was Operation Anaconda. It's the spring offensive in 2002. So towers fell in September 11 of 2001. We did our initial deployments to Afghanistan. I was on one of the early waves, got a chance, thanks to some great mentors and people who had taken me under their wing. I got tossed onto the very first gunship that flew into Afghanistan after 9/11. And then I stayed deployed all the way up into the first week of Operation Anaconda. And it gave me great experience at a young age. And it put me as one of the more seasoned, people specific to Afghanistan on these crews, on the crew that was flying at Roberts Ridge that night for the Battle of Takur Gar. So when Anaconda is going off, when we say spring offensive, you're in the mountainous region. It's the Tarankot Valley. It's south of Gerdez. A couple hour two south of Bagram, Afghanistan. It's a mountainous region. The peaks there exceed 10,000 feet. The mountain of Takur Gar was somewhere 11 plus. The Operation Anaconda, with it being that spring offensive, with the winter time and everything, your snow, you've got bad weather. The fighting slows down significantly in the wintertime in those areas. So this spring offensive is literally, everybody's about to go get their fight on after, the weather has improved enough for us to make a move in this area. This area is significant because the Battle of Tora Bora had happened, and it is believed that the fighters have migrated back to what is considered one of their strongholds. And it's a page right out of the playbook that the Mujahideen had done with the against the Russians in the 80s. And so we kind of had a historical reference and knew that that's where they would be. And then, not to mention, the more current intel at the time that was leading towards that. So Operation Anaconda ends up being a combined conventional and special operations operation. It's commanded by a two-star conventional army officer, but all of the initial, the advanced force element that's going to be in place are your special reconnaissance teams from the Joint Special Operations arena. So that is led by a guy named Pete Blaber. He's the head of what they call the Advanced Force Operations, and he's put a number of teams in these high point positions to do the overwatch and essentially call in fires when necessary. Then you're going to have indigenous forces that push into the valley, and the backstop, the anvil. Anaconda was known as Hammer and Anvil. The Hammer is indigenous forces with American, I think it was Special Forces, Green Berets. They were supposed to push into the valley, and then the backstop was going to be other conventional forces, 10th Mountain and 101st, that served as the anvil. So push the fighters to those guys, essentially sandwich them, and then we would have tactical advantage and the ability to direct air power over them and all that kind of stuff. Well, when all this goes down, the very first night of Operation Anaconda, it becomes abundantly clear that the enemy is already present and already holds key positions in the high ground. So the teams, when they first go in on that very first night, start taking hostile fire and so forth. And bottom line, we did not have enough air assets to handle all of the stuff airborne at that particular point in time. So folks were, there was quick adjustments made, and night one didn't go as well as we wanted. So night two, they just flood the area. We launched 6 gunships, 3 out of Uzbekistan and 3 out of Masira. And the guys that were coming out of Masira were the U model gunships. They flew under a call sign of Nail. And the ones from the north out of Uzbekistan were what I was flying on, the Spectre gunship. It's an older variant, but still abundantly capable in the area and so forth. So you've got 6 gunships, and everybody's got dedicated close air support. That's the role that we would have played. If you're not familiar with an AC-130, it's a C-130 cargo plane outfitted with guns and cannons. We fly in a left-hand orbit. We've got sensors. They're deadly accurate. You've got a 105 millimeter howitzer as the big gun. You've got a 40 millimeter Bofors cannon as a medium-sized gun. And then you can just rain death from above. It's a wicked platform.
So it's a pirate ship in the air, just bristling with guns on the
uh,
side, just pointing out. Yeah, no, it's sick.
Absolutely. So I loved a lot of the birds that I flew on, but I think anybody that's ever flown AC-130s has an affinity for that platform because it was nice to actually be on a bird that I could shoot back on.
Yeah,
Instead of just getting shot at all the
yeah,
time,
drawing
you could
fire.
actually, yeah. So when night two happens, you have those special reconnaissance teams that are already up there, right? You've got we set the stage with the indigenous and the conventional forces that are going to create the hammer and anvil. Well, the SEALs had moved into town, and they had been doing the high value target mission, and so they were supposed to, launch out of Bagram. This fight would go on, and then they were going to be the team that would launch for any high value targets that depart the area, assuming that once the fight gets on, the people like Osama bin Laden or Zawahiri, the people that we were trying to target at the time, you would think that they would kind of flush out of the area and go to a safer spot. Well, it became clear at some point that this was going to be the big fight at the time. And so the SEAL leadership, which was Tim Zemansky, and I think he was a commander at the time. He's the XO executive officer for the unit. and their commanding officer is Captain Kernan. They made the determination to take the Mako element that was the high value target team that had John Chapman on it, led by Britt Slavinsky, and they wanted to put them forward in one of those Overwatch positions with the advanced force operations that were led by Pete Glaber. And so there was arguments about whether that was necessary, whether they needed to be there, or what have you. Well, the SEALs went ahead and did it, and there's a lack of overall coordination. Blaber has left the safe house. He's out forward in the field when the SEALs actually infill. They don't coordinate with the other Overwatch positions that know that this mountain is occupied, and it's not known to everybody that the mountain is occupied. They're originally supposed to be covered. So the Mako element is going to infill to Talker Gar. They're trying to delay the infill because in order to get into position, they need to infill in one location, offset, and then patrol up to their Overwatch position so that they can get into place without being discovered by the enemy. So essentially, you end up with a compressed timeline, and the SEALs are literally ordered to get up there. And one of Slab's peers was offered this mission, and he had denied it. He was like, "Nope, not doing that. It didn't make tactical sense." Well, Slab, for whatever reason, ended up, taking on the mission, even though it went against TTPs, and those are tactics, techniques, procedures. So they press forward to infill. Well, it's already, so you've already got some issues, and now the timeline's compressed. It's going to force them to land on what we call the X. So they need to land on the point from which they want to observe. They've got to go to the target with the helicopter. So again, normally that's a no-no. Well, there's a little bit of safety in this because they're going to be covered by a gunship for the infill. Well, the helicopters encounter a maintenance issue. They're delayed. At the same time that delay is going on, a local airfield at Kaust comes under attack. The airborne command and control platform decides to retask the nail element to cover the troops in contact situation going on at Kaust Airfield. Our aircraft, we are transiting airspace. We're flying that night as the dedicated emergency on-call CAS platform. Like, we don't have a specific mission. We're just there for when an emergency pops up,
like a beat cop, or like a floating, what do they call it,
we're
floater, like
supposed to just
ambulances.
respond to whatever
Yeah.
fire happens out there, right? So the nail gets retasked, the helos are delayed, and we're asking command and control, hey, nail has a specific mission. Are you sure you don't want us to cover that? We're the emergency on call CAS platform. They say nope, stick to your tanker plan, proceed into Pakistan airspace, and go hit your aerial refueling tanker. So we say aye aye and go do it. We're on the tanker, and the helos have now gotten well, and they go to do the infill without the gunship being overhead. What it's my understanding that the nail element was in a standoff orbit, and so they don't ever want to orbit over the exact operation, because then you highlight a position or a maneuver that might be about to happen. So in a standoff orbit, they take their sensors, they look at the mountain. Well, they're probably somewhere around 10 miles away from this. They don't see the activity on top of the mountain. They don't see that it's occupied. They call it clear. They proceed to Kaust, and they're handling that situation. The helicopters and the Mako element have taken that information, and now they're just going to go ahead and infill to the X. Well, when they do, it becomes immediately clear as soon as they try to infill, because they take small arms and RPGs, and it's so bad that the helicopter ends up having to do a crash landing, a controlled crash down the valley, north of this particular mountain. And when all that happened, the team, the aircraft gets jostled around. Petty Officer Roberts gets knocked loose from the aircraft. He falls onto the mountaintop. I've recounted this a few times, seen some of the research and so forth. You can watch a number of different videos and hear how people describe it. Bottom line, he fell about 10 to 12 feet and he survived the fall. So nobody sees this from a gunship standpoint when this happens, but there are ISR platforms that are out there that have captured this event on video, like they saw it. So the Roberts falls out. The helicopter limps off north in the valley. Alan Mack is the pilot. He's written a book called Razor Zero Three. Don't know the guy personally, but hell of a damn pilot from what he experienced and what he was able to do. So my hat's off to him. When that happens, John Chapman is Mako 30 Charlie, as you can see on the shirt
Mm-hmm.
that I wear. Um, so Charlie suffix is significant. So that stands for the controller, the JTAC. In this case, an Air Force Combat Controller. If you don't know what those are, they are high-speed special operators. In the Air Force, we call them special tactics. These guys train to the level of the Army and the Navy's special operators because they embed
And
with
then
just about
and
anybody
then they call it
because
in.
yeah, they are the air support experts. So these guys can call in fire under just about any type of circumstance, and they're just amazing at what they do. So they're a force multiplier for any
Mm-hmm.
special operation team that they're embedded within, and they're extremely capable. They train with them, they embed with them, they do this mission. So John Chapman comes up on the radio as Mako 30 Charlie, and it's Mayday, 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 any grim, any nail, this is Mako 30 Charlie. We're on the tanker in Pakistan when we hear this. It comes over the SATCOM radio. We immediately, respond to his call. So Grim 32 is establishing contact with Mako 30 Charlie. He's given us the lowdown on what just happened, and we do an emergency separation from the tanker, slew our sensors to his location. I've got some specialized equipment on board where I knew what their grid coordinates were. So the sensors put eyes on that location, and we just make a beeline straight to their position. As soon as we get overhead their crashed helicopter, he's explaining the situation that Roberts has fallen out and asks us to shift our eyes to the mountaintop and see if we can get a status on Petty Officer Roberts. So when we do, we slide our orbit. It's really close. It's an easy maneuver. We just basically swing out of one orbit and pick up another one. And there's no real change other than it's just sliding from here to there. It's super easy. So sensors are on that mountaintop. We've got a sister ship, gunship. It's Grim 33. They come in and they establish the orbit over the downed helicopter. We're over Petty Officer Roberts at the top of the mountain. We see his strobe going off. We see him laid out on top of the mountain. And then we see a number of fighters approach him and just surround him. We don't know his fate at this point. We don't see any active engagement when we're looking, but you see the strobe, you see the enemy surround him, and then you see the strobe extinguish, and then you see him and the enemy move up towards a big rock outcrop that they called the boulder up there. So he's kind of placed there. We think that we're assuming that they kind of have left him there as bait, knowing that the Americans are sure to come back for a fallen teammate. And sure enough, that's what happens. So while Mako 30 and John Chapman 30 Charlie are on the ground with the crashed air crew, they had a sister ship that was infilling another team nearby. That was Razor 04. So that MH-47 is orbiting in what I would call a black hole. So he's orbiting in an area that's not populated. He's in a safe spot, but he doesn't have line of sight to talk direct line of sight radio communication with his teammate, and he's trying to figure out where Razor 03 is. So that coordination gets relayed through us and John Chapman in order for Razor 04 to affect their rescue. So this is one of the points that we'll get into, but Slab says that he rescued the crew, and it's just flat out not true. So John Chapman did that because he's the combat controller. He's talking to us. When an aircraft goes down and another aircraft responds, that platform serves as what you call an on-scene commander. So we've got a checklist that we run through, and it's think of it, like if you ever knew what A-10s and the Sandy
Mm-hmm.
mission was called, that's what it is. So there's not an A-10 overhead. Instead, it's a gunship. We've got sensors, we've got guns, we've got radios. We can affect whatever needs to happen up there as far as a recovery effort and that sort of thing. So we're on scene commander. John Chapman talks to us, and we collectively coordinate the rescue done by Razor Zero 4 to pick up the team. So Mako 30 at this point, unless they're leading that air crew out on the ground, and escorting them to safety, that's the only way that the SEALs actually rescue the crew. They're actually the ones getting rescued because a helicopter comes in to pick them up, and they were just passengers on board. They're a SEAL team that was on board the MH-47 that literally crash landed in the valley. So it's nuts to hear him say, "Well, I have my original mission, and then now my primary mission is I got to rescue this crew." And it's funny because you'll hear his recounts, and it'll be I, and then every once in a while he slips up and he says something like we. Um, but he can't do that because that's not consistent with the Navy's narrative that they've
Uh,
inserted for him. So anyway, it's embarrassing. So John effectively affects that rescue through us with Razor 4. They go back to ultimately their safe house and come up with a hasty rescue mission. Again, we're assuming that Petty Officer Roberts is alive. Unbeknownst to us, the other ISR platforms out there had a little better high fidelity sensor, and they could tell that the enemy had tried to behead him at this point. So it's known by other people that aren't in direct comms with our aircraft or that team or their leadership for that matter. They don't know that Roberts is dead. None of us do. So we're going into this assuming that he's still alive, and the team wants to go back and recover their teammate. So they come up with that plan. They're at the safe house. Razor Zero 4 flies them back to the top of the mountain, and we execute a hasty recovery mission, rescue mission. Um, we think we're highlighting a spot for them to infill to. We don't want them to go right back to the same spot. And the reason being is we want them to get on the ground, get in comms with us, and use the platform for their tactical advantage so that we can put down the fires. And the reason why that's an issue is because on night one of Anaconda, there was a friendly fire incident. Our gunship from the night before had mistakenly engaged a friendly unit that was maneuvering, and there was some confusion where we had a airborne mission computer failure. And in the aftermath of all of this, we thought that we might have been looking in a spot that our equipment said was in a different location, right? So like there had been drift in the system. Well, it turns out that was not the case. We were looking exactly where we were. These the friendly element that was maneuvering wasn't marked and hadn't coordinated. And so when we called in the position to ultimately Ultra Zero One, that the gentleman I named earlier, Pete Blaber, he wasn't tracking any friendlies in that area, and we ultimately got cleared to fire on a friendly, not realizing that they were friendly. They weren't appropriately marked. We went through all the normal, checking for friend to foe and looking for their identifying markers and that sort of thing, and it wasn't marked, and we slung a few rounds down. We ended up killing a Green Beret by the last name of Harriman. It was extremely unfortunate. We injured a couple of folks. We unfortunately we took his life. All fog of war. In the aftermath of it, the crew took responsibility, but there was no blame, if that makes sense, because like the crew did what they were supposed to do. It just it's an unfortunate thing that happened. So that event changes the rules of engagement when it comes to putting down fires. So there's varying degrees of fire control, and so what had happened in this case was we were reporting what we saw, and a clearance to fire authority who did not have eyes on that target cleared us to fire based on what we had reported. So now we've gone to the tighter version of these controls where you have to have that controller have eyes on the target and be in direct comms with the aircraft before the aircraft can release fires. So this comes into play because the Mako element wants us to put down pre-assault fires when they're coming back in to recover Roberts. Well, since we don't know the fate of Roberts and the enemy positions are so close, it's in a situation what you call danger close. So he's in such close proximity that he would be in the impact danger zone of an exploding round. So when that round impacts, you've got to have safe distance, or you have to have danger close authority issued to you by that person who's requesting the fires. So since we're not in that comms, we don't have all of that. And timing of all of it going down, bottom line, we don't put down pre-assault fires. It's two reasons why we didn't. The rules of engagement and the fact that there was a danger close situation with Petty Officer Roberts. Well, we're marking this position. We've turned on like an IR spotlight for them that is visible on their on the pilot's NVGs. So it just illuminates the area so that they can see it clearly. So we're marking the landing zone that we want them to go to. Well, the team has directed the pilot to go right back to the X because they don't want to take time is of the essence in their mind, and tactically they don't want to have to fight uphill. They want to get as close to where Roberts is believed to be, and try and get to him as fast as possible. Well, that brings up another discrepancy when you look at some of Slab's recounts, because Slab, with all of his engagements, he does a lot of interviews. Well, he says that the pilots told him there was no other place to land up there. Well, he knows that there's another place to land up there because he was lobbying to land at that other place when he was asking for the mission delay. Then he knew where the X was, and oh, by the way, we were burning. We were identifying a landing zone that was suitable for them. So they made the decision to go back to the X, and it wasn't the pilots or anybody else that said that there wasn't any suitable, that he didn't have any choice or whatever. They made a decision, and ultimately, hindsight 2020, I would say it would have been better off under the circumstances now, with the benefit of looking back, that had a better tactical chance to land further away out of hostile fire, establish two-way comms, and let the gunship shoot the targets and allow you to make it up the mountain. Again, they made that call. It was within his purview to make that call, and I don't think he was necessarily wrong in doing so. I just think hindsight probably would have been better. So they go in as soon as they land, they come under fire. The first guy off is Slab, based on his own account. He As soon as he exits the helicopter, he completely takes a fall, and we think that he's gotten shot as soon as he ran off the helicopter. It turns out, again, his own account, the snow was deeper than he anticipated, and he just took a header, as he says, in the deep snow. He describes it as like reaching for a step, and it's further away than you think. So threw him off balance. He goes face down in the snow. Well, John Chapman is the second person off the helicopter, and that puts Chapman leapfrogging Slab, and that's how Chapman ends up on point, going up the mountain. And his orders were to get up and get to the high ground and establish comms with the aircraft. Well, no sooner do they do that, the SEALs come together in what they were describing as a wagon wheel, and Chapman is separated from them. He's above them, and the bunker opens up on them just as they're trying to get their initial bearings. And Chapman, because he knows that he's in an ambush, the tactic is to run to the gun. Like you're supposed to go look through the ambush. Well, Chapman goes straight after it, and SEALs break up into two-man fire teams, and two go around the side of the rock, two maintain position because there are enemy all around. They're taking effective fire from three different sides, basically 270 degrees. So two guys are going to the left towards the left side of the boulder if you're looking up the mountain. Two guys are oriented, taking care of threats that are below them, downslope, basically behind them. And then Chapman's on point going towards bunker one, and Slab tries to follow him up the mountain, and he does, but he's pretty far back. The ISR footage shows Chapman going through. You can see the rounds coming out of his rifle. He does a mag change. He goes up, and there's a slight pause, and then he fully assaults that bunker. Well, the closest proximity that Slab gets to him is probably about 15 feet or so at this point. And Chapman effectively eliminates bunker one all by himself. So he goes all the way up to the bunker, kind of flanks it off the bunkers here. Chapman comes at it this direction and then point blank range kills the two occupants, the two enemy fighters that are in it. And then Chapman goes in the bunker and comes out on the other side. And now he's taking up a position on the right side of a tree, looking at the next biggest threat, which is bunker two. At this point, Slab finally catches up to the bunker. He puts a couple of finishing rounds. Guys are already dead, but he shoots into the bunker, and then he comes out on the left side of the tree, in between the boulder and the tree itself, and both of them are directing fire on bunker two. Bunker two, it's got a PKM in it. It's a significant threat. This is where Chapman takes a mortal wound. Chapman is incapacitated during this part of the engagement, but he is not killed. We know this from a research standpoint because the ranked all the wounds for most people.
Say that last sentence again. Your mic cut out for like 10 seconds.
Sorry. Um, the we know the status of Chapman. We know that he did not get killed at this point as they're engaged in bunker two, because we had a forensic pathologist come back and review the original medical examiner's findings. The original medical examiner, when they looked at everything and documented it, he documented it from most lethal to least lethal, but didn't necessarily put time and order to the wounds that Chapman had taken. So when the forensic pathologist came in, they went back and took that medical examiner's report and then looked at it like a criminal forensics pathologist would have done. And so they were able to put time and order to the wounds based on bruising and all that kind of stuff. Because ultimately, when Chapman was killed, he was killed by a round that came in, low, and it exited up into it impacted into his left shoulder, and it took off the top of his aorta. And
Ooh.
so when that happened, there's no blood pressure, there's no more bleeding, no more bruising that happens at that point. So um, they it, it it's absolutely verifiable that John didn't die during this part. Well, the SEALs counter narrative is that this is the point where Chapman was killed. 3 minutes into the battle. Well, Britt, you can see the team. They're all putting down fires. They're trying to affect the fire on bunker two. Ultimately, bunker two is that big threat up there, as I was describing. Slab ends up putting one of his machine gunners up on top of the boulder. He's putting fire directly into bunker two, and then the enemy frag that machine gunner with a grenade, and he slides down off the rock. Well, Chapman has fallen on the right side of that tree that I described. He's up underneath the canopy, so we can't quite see him with our sensor at this point. But again, there's other camera footages that do show him. So Slab then, once he's got that injury, and he thinks that Chapman is dead, they make the decision to do the tactical retreat. Daylight is approaching. It's daylight, where we are at 10,000 feet above them at altitude, and it's pre-dawn for them. They throw smoke grenades to mask their movement off the top of the mountain, and this mountain, like the terrain is nasty. Like it's not easy to traverse. They go sliding down the side. They put terrain between them and the enemy up top, and then they're finally able to establish comms with us. And so now it is no longer Mako 30 Charlie on the radio. Now it's Slab as Mako 30. And now he's telling us, hey, Grim, I need you to put effective fire on tops now. I've got troops down, possible KIA. I need fire on tops now. So we go to engage. When we get ready to engage, we're trying to shoot gun 5, which is the 40mm Bofors. There's a gun malfunction on gun number 5, so we have to switch to 6. 6 has a proximity shell 105mm loaded into it. when that shell gets close to the ground, it explodes like an airburst and it
Mm.
frags out. Since we're dealing with potential survivor on the mountaintop, we got to do a quick round change. We go to a point detonating round. So this takes about a minute or so for the crew to the gunners to sort through that issue, and we start engaging via the infrared sensor with gun 6, the 105. So we're shooting those known enemy positions that are above the boulder, in that trench line where we had seen the majority of the effective fire coming. And we're, as we had watched that initial firefight unfold, we were marking all those enemy positions. So the sensor knows where he needs to shoot and all that kind of stuff. Well, we're dancing rounds all around bunker 1 and above it and bunker 2. Well, that happens to be where Chapman had fallen, and he's, we don't know this. When Mako reported the possible KIA, we're assuming that he's talking about Petty Officer Roberts, because they were right next to Roberts there behind the boulder. Well, they say after the fact that they never saw Roberts. Well, I don't know how you couldn't, because like there would have been a lot of blood. He was propped up right there. They when you see the footage, they literally crawl right over the top of Roberts. Like there's no doubt that they saw him, but that was their story. They said they never saw him. We'll get to the reason why that's important. So when they broke that contact and they're doing the call for fire, we think they're talking about Roberts. We don't realize that one of the original assaulters is still up there as well. So while the IR is engaging these targets, we've got another sensor who's the TV, and the TV's basically a special. It's a camera, and it's like a super night vision goggle capable night vision camera. So that is the sensor. So he's identifying the friendly position, and so he's watching the main element of Mako 3-0. Well, while you're engaging, they'll dance back and forth between where the friendlies are and where the other sensor is engaging, just so that they can maintain SA, because you have two different capabilities on the sensors. The night vision camera is going to show you light. So if muzzle flash or an artillery round shoots off, you're going to have a better chance at seeing what's going on. While he's going back and forth between where the IR is engaging and the friendly position, Chris, the TV sensor operator, sees a second strobe. He's like, hey, Foco, that's the fire control officer on the Spectre. He's like, I got another strobe up here. He's like, but this one doesn't look like the others. And so as soon as we're having that conversation on the aircraft, the team starts to take effective fire, both from the top of the mountain, and there's enemy mortars getting lobbed in on their position and directly on top of the landing zone. So we never communicate the situation with the second strobe to the Mako 3-0 element, because now we're on to the next closest allocator to the boat, and that's protecting the main body of the team, because they were starting to take effective fire. As all of that starts to unfold, the daylight's arising. We had shut off one of our radios because the home station was kind of getting on our nerves. There was a one element of command and control that wasn't at our home station. They didn't have the best situational awareness what was going on, so that it wasn't a distraction, we had shut it off. Our sister ship was keeping tabs on that, and they're talking to us on interplane. Well, the sister ship is going home because it is beginning morning nautical twilight. Daylight has arisen. Well, gunships, because of their loiter, they're flying, in that left-hand orbit. You're kind of a sitting duck for enemy air defenses. So we tend to use the cover of darkness to our advantage, and it was against our standard operating procedures to fly during daylight operations. You would have had to have a high level approval for them to waive that rule for us. Well, our sister ship went home on time. They didn't break curfew, but they're telling us on their flight home, like, hey, mom is really pissed. You guys need to come up on that radio, because they're trying to get a hold of us and trying to order us off station. Well, we had gone nose to tail check-in, thanks to the pilot. Everybody knows a story of Spirit 03. It was an aircraft in the first Gulf War. It stayed behind the daylight operations to help out some Marines, and sadly, that bird was shot down. So that was a Spectre, and so it's known in the community why you don't fly during daylight. Well, we checked in on call with the pilot, understanding what we were doing, and the whole point of, no, we're not leaving this team, we're going to stay. So we had done that. We had made our decision. We tried to stay up there as long as we could, so that we didn't leave them uncovered. And then ultimately, we got ordered off station. So when we got back, my pilot said it was the most professional ass chewing he had ever received. The fellow that did that was at the time Colonel John Mulholland. He was the Task Force Dagger commander up there. He went on to be a general officer in the Army, great leader, so forth. But as my pilot received his most professional ass chewing on the way out, the general was able to relay in a way that kept him on the right side of what he was telling him. You shouldn't have done this. He said, you did the right thing. So he understood what we were trying to do, but obviously it wouldn't have done us any good if the gunship had gotten shot down and then you had 13 other, potential either deaths or survivors out there. It would have just made the matters worse. So we finally end up having a break station. We're on our way home. As we're doing that, we're effecting a handoff with a two ship of F-15E Strike Eagles. While that's going on, the quick reaction force with the Rangers is inbound. They're going to be coming in on a two ship of MH-47s, and these are call signs Razor 01 and 02. So when all this happens, for whatever reason, all the pertinent information for what's going on at that mountaintop, I think there was a comm issue for the helicopters. It doesn't get relayed. And sure enough, Razor 01 infills right back to the same exact spot. Well, when they do, Chapman, unbeknownst to Mako 30, has survived. Chapman, during this hour and 20-minute period, has continued to fight up there. Enemy has tried to ambush him in the bunker. There's times where he even goes hand-to-hand combat with the fighters that are up there. Like it's unbelievable. Well, when those helicopters get ready to come in, a 47 is not a stealthy aircraft. It's very, very loud. Tandem rotor, a significant wop wop sound. It's very has a very distinct
Is that
sound.
the Chinook?
So yeah, the
Yeah,
Chinook.
that big. Yeah, that's about as stealthy as a school bus on fire.
So if they don't know the landing zone, if they don't have imagery for it or what have you, they'll make a high speed pass and make it look just like they're flying by, and then they'll disappear and then pop back up, and then they'll do their assault
Sure.
landing back to that spot. Well, Chapman hears the sound of that helicopter, and then he knows that shit, they're about to come in, and if I don't do something, they're going to suffer the same exact fate as everybody else. And so he comes out from cover, starts putting fire. He shoots at bunker 2, and then he turns and puts his fires down the slope towards an RPG corner. And when that happens, the helicopter flares, comes in, they take fire. John's putting down suppressive fire, and John gets shot in the back by the guy who was up near bunker 2. John's laying down prone position down slope, and it matches the angle of
Mm.
the round as they were able to put chronology based on the forensic pathology. So we know without a shadow of a doubt this is what happened, thanks to all of this footage finally being recovered. So that's how John, ultimately, sacrifices himself for the sake of that quick reaction force. He gives his life for those guys, and the QRF lands. They take a number of casualties as well. Ultimately, but in addition to Chapman and Roberts, there's 5 other members from that quick reaction force that are killed. One of them is from the SOAR. From the 47, he was a crewman on the 47, and the others were Rangers, and then there was one Air Force pararescueman that was Cunningham. So when this battle unfolds, now the SEALs have broken contact. They're further down the mountain. They're not in harm's way per se. They're outside the wire. They're not at a safe house, but they're not under direct fire by any means. When the quick reaction force helicopter comes in, the Rangers do their best to secure the mountain, but it's not until the second QRF lands further away and those Rangers are able to rejoin the initial Ranger element from the first bird, and then they're finally able to take over the mountain and do their thing. And that's, thanks to some close air support, and there were combat controllers, the pararescue guys, the Rangers, and heck, there was even another SEAL that was on board the second QRF, and that guy went to go link up with Mako 30. He didn't even stay with the Ranger element to secure the mountain. He went to go check on his teammates because he knew that they had casualties and so forth. So anyway, that was essentially what unfolded. And then, some, depending on who's which unit it is, Battle of Roberts Ridge lasts somewhere around 17 hours. I think the SEALs report being out there for 14. John gave his life. 7 guys get killed. We had 3 helicopters get shot up, and it's all because the SEAL leadership decided to force themselves into this particular Overwatch position that was never part of the plan. And so it's kind of a mess. Well, that's why everything became, contentious, because there was so much stuff that went wrong with all of that. As soon as we land, we land back in Uzbekistan, and we get met by our ops officer who says, "Give me the tape." And that's typical, right? Because especially if you have an event that results in loss of life or what have you, they need to go through reviews and see exactly what happened and so on. Well, what happened after that was we never got a chance to review any of it as a crew. You never get a chance to fully debrief it. When we landed, he takes the tape, he goes back to the talk. A handful of us from what we call the TAC crew, the people that were basically the guys that have eyes on the sensors and that sort of stuff. So it's me, the infrared, the TV, the nav, the FOCO, the pilot, the co-pilot. The main pilot had to go back in because he had to go get that professional ass chewing. We have a quick conversation. We're like, we're certain we left somebody up there. There's somebody up there still fighting on that mountain when we left. And it was like, what the heck? And so we're all scratching our head, like, can't believe what just unfolded. And then you're immediately into crew rest and you're on to fly the next mission. So you just move forward, like file that away and then move on with the next day's mission. Well, you got to fast forward. Then, the service crosses happen. Those citations again are credited for Slab and Chapman taking out Bunker 1. Well, that's where things start to get a little sketchy, because that is going to be the foundation of where the research will start once we finally recover the tapes. And the reason why the tapes disappear is because the very next day after the mission, the SEALs sent 2 guys up in plain clothes and confiscated all of the video. Confiscated it. So what'll happen is it's recorded on a VHS cassette. It gets transferred digitally onto a CD-ROM, and then that was the recording. The VHSs, they get reused, So, but we've captured it. Well, they had to transmit that data, and so when it transmitted, they didn't technically possess it, but it resided in little chunks on the Terra server that they were using there at the deployed location. Well, fast forward, the SEALs have confiscated the videos. Those things are handwritten by Frank Daly, marking the date and the classification and all that kind of stuff. Well, they disappear. Just as they're getting ready to shut down the base in Uzbekistan, and they're going to move towards Bagram. This is later in the deployment. One of the imagery analysts comes up to Frank and says, "Hey, you remember that stuff that they confiscated? I just found all the chunks of that data on the Terra server." He's like, "Do you want me to delete it?" He's like, "No, do not delete it. Just hang on to it." So they mark that Terra server, and it goes under lock and key for years. Well, you fast forward to it's somewhere between, I want to say, like 11 and 14. I can't remember the exact date, but there was SecDef and actually the SecAF there was an article that published that said, what does it take to win a Medal of Honor? And so that kicks off a directed research effort to go back and look at your highest valor awards and see, did we miss anything? Is anything worthy of upgrading? So, so the Air Force does that, and that's where the Terra server comes back into play. Frank Daly's still around. Now he's a retired chief. He's a civilian intel analyst. He partners with somebody, an amazing senior NCO, Jackie. She takes 2,000 clips and pieces it all back together. And that ends up being the initial basis of our research. Well, when that happens, the service secretaries end up given letters, and the Air Force Special Operations Command commander says, these are a Valor, this is a Valor Review Board team, cooperate with anything they ask for. And that's kind of like their permission slip. So they go out and they try to, see whatever other footage is out there that could, that was captured and recorded any of this stuff. And then that's where the Predator footage gets recovered. And then we had that those recordings actually end up, they show up in a double wrapped envelope, no return address, and Frank opens up the envelope, and lo and behold, it's the discs that he had handwritten back in 2002. It's like these were my discs. So that stuff comes out. They do all the research. You piece all this stuff back together. You realize that John survived for an hour and 20 minutes and continued the fight. You actually can see that John eliminated Bunker One, not John and Slab. Like Slab was there, Slab was behind him, but John eliminated Bunker One. So anyway, that's where the false narrative happens, and so on. So I say they confiscated the tapes. I say that the Mako reported that they never saw Petty Officer Roberts. Well, the reason why they say they never saw Petty Officer Roberts is because it was seen in real time with that Predator ISR footage in the various deployed talks that there was somebody up on that mountain still fighting after the SEALs broke contact, and the QRF was not there yet. So the Navy wanted to believe that that was Petty Officer Roberts. Well, the Air Force wanted to believe that that was John Chapman. So by them saying that they never saw Roberts, it gave them an ounce of hope to say that Roberts was still alive, and that was the potential for the hero of the day. Now, I would tell you that Roberts is a hero, absolutely, because when he fell out of that helicopter, you don't see this footage because it's been squashed, but Roberts actually takes the fight to the enemy up there before he just gets completely overrun. He's the only guy up there. There's a very honorable retired SEAL by the name of Eric Deming who's come out and spoke out on this. His issue is, the lack of integrity, and the truth to power, and trying to be honest about it and own your mistakes, and so on. So he was concerned, about this one because there's some tactics and so forth that he was interested in. But there's actually footage out there that shows what Roberts did. Well, we had all of ours. The research team is doing it. Jackie had pieced back the 2,000 clips. The forensic pathologist got involved. We had a host of pro imagery analysts that get involved as well. They go back and they specifically map the entire top of that mountain. They built a scale model and so on. Not only do they map it physically, they map it digitally. And what's significant about that is that you can drop a pinpoint at any place on that mountain. You can show what your point of view is from that particular position. And they can put you in a prone position, they can put you kneeling, they can put you standing. They can spin you around 360, and they can show you what you can see from those positions. So that becomes an issue because when Slab has his recounts and the evolving story that is that SEAL false narrative. Well, Slab's initial recount is that he looked over and saw the rise and fall of a laser on John's chest, and then he didn't see the rise and fall. And that's how he assessed John to be dead. Well, fast forward, we built all of this research package, and it's September of 16, and we meet in a classified workspace in DC, and we run through, and it's the first time that we have presented all of the findings to current dev group member for special warfare. It's at the time he's a captain. It's Jeremy Williams. He's still serving today, and that's an issue. He is their commanding officer. The surviving members of Mako 30 are present in the room, minus one who's remoted in. And then they have their intel guy there is Commander George Hartwell. And that also becomes an issue because I've got an email trail from George Hartwell that says that he was tasked to research the Air Force's research, which is just absurd. It's crazy. But the reason why he was tasked by his commanding officer, which is Jeremy Williams, um, is because our research and the facts are now unfortunately going to cast a bad light on the SEAL team because the fact is that there was a man left behind. Okay, and again, it wasn't intentional, but rather than accept that, then they just turned around and doubled down, and everything is John died within 3 minutes, and now not only does Slab in this specific meeting, he changes his story that had just printed where he was talking about the laser rise and fall. Now, in this meeting, when we show him all this footage, he says, I crawled right over the top of John. No, he didn't, buddy. Like, here's the video. You can check. Like, the only person who crawled over was actually Petty Officer Roberts, who you guys claim to have never seen. So that's an issue. They him and haw over a few different things. There's arguments about the status of John's gun. That's an interesting one because they're like John's weapon was damaged, like it wasn't serviceable. Well, we find out after the fact. There's a book written by Nate Self, who was the captain of the Ranger QRF. He writes a book called I think it's called My Two Wars. In there, he talks about Jonas Paulson and Jonas Paulson. Nate Self remembers this. One of his Rangers carrying a kitted out, SR-25 rifle, and it's a special rifle. It's all painted up, and it's not typical Ranger issue stuff. And he's like, "What the heck?" And so that when Frank Daly saw that, he engaged with Jonas Paulson directly and says, "Tell me about the rifle." And well, Paulson was a 60 gunner, and the caliber of rifle that John was carrying was a 308. So they were the NATO 7.62 rounds. So his rifle, when Paulson's melted a barrel, he was able to take all of his remaining ammo and grab that rifle out of the weapons cache, and he was able to use it. So Chapman was recovered with all of his gear, and I don't know if I can't recall if he had all of his rounds expended or if he was down to like his final couple of rounds. But either way, his weapon was serviceable. Well, the reason why this is an issue is because when the QRF is actually getting exfilled, Jonas Paulson is one of the last guys loading injured onto the helicopter and goes to step on that helicopter and literally gets shot from behind by an enemy that's still up there. And the round impacts on the magwell of Chapman's rifle. So not only did Chapman assault bunker one, save the team, come out, sacrifice himself, save the QRF. Now his rifle, after John has sacrificed his life, John's rifle actually protects Jonas Paulson from getting shot in the back. You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild. So, so when they started to make the argument about the status of John's rifle, like doesn't matter, and they were talking about like what type of did they hear AKs, did they hear whatever? Well, John's weapon was suppressed. So if you've ever shot a suppressed rifle, it's not completely silent like you might think out of the movies or whatever, right? Especially if it's not a subsonic round. So anyway, the suppression is really just kind of hide and muzzle flash. It's not completely and totally masking sound. Those dudes would have heard that. All right, they knew what was going on, and there's no doubt in my mind that they know that. Anyway, my opinion. So the other piece that's interesting after we showed them all of the imagery and we're walking through all of this stuff, we've outlined the forensic pathology. We show the gunship footage. I speak to the fact that here's the IR strobe, and there he is crawling into the bunker. You can't argue with it. Then there's another teammate, another controller named Jay Hill. He's with one of the special reconnaissance teams that's on an adjacent mountain. After the gunship left, before the QRF arrives, Jay Hill heard Mako 30 Charlie come up on the radio. Jay knows John personally. He knows his radio etiquette, recognizes his voice, tries to communicate with him. He can hear John, but John doesn't hear him and is never able to respond to Jay. Well, when Jay says this in that September 16 meeting, would you believe that every one of them, from Slab to the other two physical members of Mako 30 in that room, they all looked at us and swore to us that they used Mako 30 Charlie suffix throughout that day. Like we're going into this trying to just be cordial, professional, not throw spears. We want to be honest in our assessment. We want to not cast blame on them for leaving John, any of that kind of stuff. And they're just literally lying through their teeth, and all of us are trying to maintain a poker face. Everybody knows that they don't use the controller suffix. Like, you just don't. Like, it does not happen. Somebody can show me that happening, yeah, I'll buy you a beer. But that is not what happened. It's not normal. They're lying. So that's the main part of the lies. Well, the SEAL counter narrative and the research that they've done, they go back and they remake their own video footages. And oh, by the way, Jeremy Williams is the current Dub Group commander. Well, the previous one is a guy named Wyman Howard. And Wyman Howard is now the director of operations for NGA, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. They're the premier, like, we use them in our analysis on this. Well, wouldn't it be interesting? I have no proof of this whatsoever, but I'll just leave you with the facts. Jeremy Williams is commander of Dev Group. He tasks the counter narrative to be done, research, the Air Force's research, to his intel guy. And they have a former Dev Group commander who's the ops officer at NGA. And when they go back and they build their own video reenactments of all of this stuff, it wouldn't be a far stretch to make a connection there. Anyway, so all while this is going on, Tim Zamansky is the commander of Naval Special Warcom. So he's head of all of the SEALs. He's an admiral. He's sitting there, and J-Dub is Deb Group, and Wyman Howard is NGA. And all of this stuff is coming down to continue effectively what is a cover-up. So, they confiscated all the video because they didn't want any of that stuff to get out. It was a mess because they forced themselves into that mission. We lose helicopters, we lose all those people. All it is a tactical distraction from the battle for the valley. It'd be interesting, with all the facts being out there. It'd be interesting to hear Pete Blaber's take on it, because I know that the Navy still pushes this John died within 3 minute narrative, because Britt says it in his interviews. And then I've got that from the Hartwell email. And then after the Hartwell email, there's a guy named Mitch Hall who's out in LA, and he's one of these SEAL Hollywood consultant types. He's a former Team 6 guy, but he's trying to do a documentary. I don't know if he's really trying to do a documentary or not, but he's done a whole bunch of interviews, and it's all self-funded. And so when you talk about the number of people, and they're flying people out and whining and dining and doing all of that, and oh, by the way, they've gone on location to Afghanistan, they've been back to the top of the mountain. How do you do that? That takes a pretty penny.
Yeah.
So I wonder who funds all of that. Where do all, connect these dots? So anyway, he continues to push the 3 minute narrative. Hell, he's reached out to me again since I started doing the podcast and trying to speak truth to all of this. So I'm getting out in front of it. I know what the facts are. The evidence is irrefutable for John Chapman, and you can't deny it, no matter how many times you want to say your Navy false narrative. Like, it's just not true. So unfortunately, they have platforms, whether it be big time podcasters or sitting on the top of these various nonprofit boards, or you've got a SEAL who's the president and CEO of the National Medal of Honor Museum. You've got Britt Slavinsky, who is a board member for that same museum. And oh, by the way, he's the head board member for the Congressional Medal of Honor Society. So these places, these places are cash cows, for good reason, right? They're nonprofits, they stand for righteous causes, and they do great things. But there's a lot of money that flows in and out of all of this stuff. And you look at the placement of these guys and the controlling of a narrative, and you say, what's the motivation? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what's going on here. So these things all tie in because there's a number of heinous acts that certain SEALs, not all of them are bad, certain SEALs have done over the years. It's well documented in Matt Cole's book, Code Over Country. I'm trying to draw attention to this because I know that Jeremy Williams is still out there serving as an admiral. I know that he's up for his next position, and it scares the heck out of me to know that somebody in his position could go into a joint flag officer position knowing what he purposely did against a sister service. And how the hell does any joint organization, how could he ever command the respect of the joint community knowing what's out there and what he's done? And there's some stuff that's so shady in this process. They went as far, like, we were willing to share all of our data with them. They went as far as to make sure that they got our data. They, yeah, I don't go any further than that on that version of the story. Somebody needs to, though,
Mm.
because that right there would hopefully be the end of Jeremy Williams' career. Um, it's a mess. So false narrative continues. The Medal of Honor Museum does all of this stuff. You got Slab out there recounting the false narrative, stealing John's valor, and then basically casting shade and downplaying the legacy of a true hero. And that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's fucked. I mean, it's just the permeation of human ego through really all things. It's
Yeah, it's interesting. You ever heard of the dark triad?
hmm
So narcissism, sociopath, psychopathy, one of those two, Machiavellianism. Three things. I I can draw a correlation between these certain seals and that the three tips on that trident, and I would tell you Navy propaganda machine, and that is your narcissism, your psychopathy, and your Machiavelli.
yeah,
What the hell?
I think it's probably I mean, just in the like, I've been doing this show for 5 years, and in like the little, very limited glimpses I've gotten to the tips of icebergs of just everything from you know being on an AC-130 to doctors to engineers to weightlifters to sci-fi to everything. It does seem to be like an inescapable, either from people that I've talked to or people that they've interacted with. I think though it doesn't make it right, but I think that those it's not surprising because those are also there's a huge Venn diagram overlap of the people that rise
Yeah,
in anything, and it's I mean like a lot of surgeons are assholes. But at the same time, it's like a gunshot victim comes in at 3 a.m. and they're able to save their life. You kind of I think it maybe kind of balances out. Let them be an asshole. They can save lives. Other times you see it. You can have someone that goes and wins however many championship
Eh,
rings.
you
They're
know,
not all great family men, and it doesn't make
when
it
you're
right or
talking
wrong.
about, yeah, to your point, when you're talking about the creme de la creme of our elite tier one units,
And and
like,
that's not rising to the
dude,
top of just anything. That's not like, oh, they're
yeah,
the best
like,
podcaster. No, you also rising to the top of truly the most
yes,
primitive, like, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean the core of mankind, which is the ability to kill and not be killed. It's like
yeah.
you can't be, and it doesn't make it right. But I guess for me, I'm not surprised. Like, yeah, they're gonna be the A team, and that also bleeds over into, you
Yeah.
know, it's
So
yeah.
the correlation here to that, like, yes, it takes a certain type of individual to rise to this level and be able to perform, under those conditions and do bad things to bad people.
Hmm.
That's what we say in this community. Um, it's not school children's game. It takes a special type of a caliber of person.
No, they're not fingerprint.
But
It's not a spelling
there's
bee. They're shooting people in the
element
face.
of say that again. I'm
I
sorry.
said, I said these aren't the people that rise to the top of the spelling bee champions. I mean, I've had on Delta
Right.
Force guys. I've hung out with them in person. You go, oh, this is that guy will put a bullet through my head and eat a sandwich. Like you go, okay, yeah, it's acknowledge it for what it is. It's a
Yeah.
different breed.
There's an element of doing that and doing it with honor and integrity.
Oh, absolutely.
And
No, I'm not excusing it. I get.
yeah,
I'm not surprised though.
yeah.
I just
It's
yeah, it's
so Matt Kubler refers to this as the original sin. As far as like you go historically look back the way Cole captures it with the stand up of SEAL Team 6 and talking about Marcinko and all that kind of stuff, and the way they were designed and what it was meant to be, and then how it has evolved and so on. There are people that refer to it as the brand, and so everything's about protecting the brand. And then I don't know anybody else out there in the military that has monetized and a specialty within a military service like the SEALs. Like it is crazy. You see it on product marketing, all kinds of stuff. So they refer to there's certain people who refer to them as members of the brand mob, and they run like a syndicate like that. It's wild.
and again like why I'm not like there's one of the Delta Force operators from Black Hawk Down, like how he went and became a pharmacist in like 2000s. He went and got his PharmD because to him the next place to take the fight was a lot of his veteran friends were abusing painkillers. And
Yeah.
like and it is impressive. Like Delta Force operated to a PharmD, and to me, I go, but that makes perfect sense. So you have this guy that's adapting to the battlefield. It's no longer something you can shoot in the face. It's a chemical you need to understand. I go, yeah, that makes sense. No part of me is surprised that, like, again, these guys who are through the selection process of death, yeah, they're at the A game of survive and advance and take care of the team. Of course, I'm not surprised at all that, like, yeah, they have a successful like
Yeah.
unit in like capitalism. Like, yeah, you throw them into any system, you put those guys into a horseback riding competition, they're probably going to be some of the best ever because it's just who they are. Now, what
Yeah.
you also see is that extreme talent, that extreme Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, whatever. That
Yeah.
also comes into things like that defense. I'm sure those guys all make their beds. I'm sure they all have very clean houses. They also probably defend their ego. And if something as brutal as you left a guy to die, or your Medal of Honor claim is accurate, they're probably also wildly defensive about that. And it doesn't make it right, but the very aspects of their personality and their grit and their drive that has pushed them to success in all aspects of life, military selection, profitable podcast, good PR.
Yeah.
It also comes out in this, right? And
Hmm.
so it's like it's probably not surprising. It doesn't make it right, but I'm no part of me is surprised that they so you can defend an outpost in the middle of nowhere with no resources. You can probably also defend your ego. It's like it's the same. You're two in the chest, one in the head. It's like be it an
Yep.
enemy or be it an accusation. It's not surprising to me. It's not right, but it's not surprising to me. If
Yeah.
that makes sense. Um,
It does.
yeah.
Um, would you want to go through? I've got a clip here. It's available out there on YouTube, but it's my favorite clip that recounts the facts of this is a narration by Dan Schilling. It's a few minutes. If you want to play through that, we can spend a couple minutes. I can display that, and then we can go through a little montage of Slab's lies.
Heaven's Harvest prepper food. 72 servings per pail, 25-year shelf life. I've had the owner Clayton on the show before. He's a God-fearing, America-loving patriot. Get one of these, get a couple of them, throw them in your basement. It's good to have it, not need it, than to need it and not have it. If you don't want to do that, you can get their seeds. You can plant your own garden, so you don't even have to keep buying them. You can just get the goods and start your own, or you can even get freeze-dried fruits and vegetables like bananas, apples, strawberries, and raspberries. They support the show. It's an honest product. It's a good safety measure to have, and they keep my show free for you. So I'd implore you guys to please go to heavensharvest.com, use the link in the description, promo code TPC. Axios Fitness Coaching is a premium resource for holistic strength and conditioning services. Axios is best known for the Training Club, capital T, capital C, an exclusive community that prioritizes accountability, technique, diet, and nutrition. Everything you need to do to take action against the decay of the modern world. Whether you're looking to improve your physique, build strength, or just take care of your health and fitness, Axios will provide you with a solution that is effective and simple to execute. All you need to do is complete the intake survey, and you can see if you're a good candidate for the training club or any other of the services. And it's going to sponsor the show. So, one company falls off, another one arises. So if you guys like the show, you want to work out, throw the show a couple shekels. Go take the survey. Thank you so much, guys.
Higher ultraviolet exposure is associated with lower mortality. The United Kingdom is a high latitude and low sunlight country. Researchers there collected data on over 360,000 participants in a study of UV exposure via solarium use. When compared with non-users, solarium users had 15% risk lowered of all-cause mortality, 23% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality, 14% lower risk of cancer mortality, and a 12% lower risk of non-cardiovascular, non-cancer mortality. In other words, all other causes. Quoting the researchers, "Our study adds to the growing evidence that the benefits of UV exposure outweigh the risks in low sunlight environments." A link to the original publication is available in the box below the video. Get some UV light this winter. Immerse yourself in the tranquility of the blue. Visit a Blue Room soon. www.blueroom.com.
All right, if I hit play,
a U.S. Air Force combat controller,
is that working?
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
And the SEALs are attempting to rescue their lost teammate. You'll watch Chapman's heroic actions as he saves the lives of his entire SEAL team and then another 18 members of a quick reaction force, earning America's highest award, the Medal of Honor. Chapman and the SEALs exfil their MH-47 helicopter. John is the second individual to exit and immediately moves in the direction of the summit. He can be seen moving off to the right of the screen, alone. The team is taking heavy fire from every direction, as indicated by the arrows, as Chapman begins engaging targets. You can see spent cartridges ejecting from his M4. Chapman then begins closing with the enemy, forcing his way upslope in knee and thigh-deep snow. He is constantly under fire as he does this. Chapman's team leader begins to close on Chapman, following his trail through the snow. The dark mass above Chapman is a fortified bunker containing 2 enemy fighters, each armed with AK-47s, who are firing down on the team in the darkness. This bunker will come to be known as Bunker Number 1. To the left of the tree and Bunker 1 is another gray mass. This is a rock outcropping that came to be called the Boulder. Between Bunker 1 and this boulder can be seen the body of slain SEAL Neil Roberts, the man Chapman and the others are attempting to recover. Chapman, still alone and closest to the enemy, pauses to engage targets as his team leader follows him, but never actually catches up with him. Chapman, on his own, now makes the decision to charge directly into the enemy bunker, despite withering point-blank fire. Chapman, now literally on top of the enemy, engages the 2 combatants and kills them, saving the lives of the remaining SEALs. He does this from a distance of no more than 10 feet. These actions by themselves earned him his first Medal of Honor. He then climbs into and takes control of the bunker. Having cleared the immediate threat, Chapman is then joined by his team leader in Bunker 1. You can then see Chapman and his team leader engaging the next bunker, known as Bunker 2, which is situated to the left edge of the screen. This bunker, manned by a handful of Chechen and Uzbek fighters, also contains a heavy PKM machine gun, hand grenades, and rocket-propelled grenades. John Chapman is shot twice at this time in the torso and collapses, incapacitated. You are now looking at a new angle, and at the left of the screen can be seen the two-man fire team and team leader on top of the boulder. Just below it is Bunker 1 with the mortally wounded Chapman. One SEAL can be seen firing his modified M60 machine gun from the hip into Bunker 2 on the right side of the screen until he is struck by grenade shrapnel and tumbles 10 feet off the top of the boulder, collapsing at the feet of his team leader, thus setting off a chain of events that would lead to the SEALs abandoning Chapman on the summit. The wounded SEAL and the team leader can be seen conferring about his injuries. Moments later, the SEALs decide to retreat from the summit because their position is untenable in the face of continued massive enemy firepower. They can be seen moving toward the right side of the screen and passing the body of Neil Roberts. Unfortunately, the SEALs do not pass John Chapman, who is above them and inside Bunker 1. This angle shows three SEALs in a triangle. The larger black heat signature is a smoke grenade. Just to its left is a donkey and dead Al-Qaeda fighter killed by Chapman. The steepness of the mountain can be seen as the SEALs begin to slide down the near sheer face. The team leader, desperate for relief and now with two wounded teammates, asks for uncontrolled airstrikes from an orbiting Air Force AC-130 gunship. The impacts you see are from 105mm howitzer rounds being fired onto the ridgetop in order to save the remaining SEALs. Because neither the SEALs nor gunship know Chapman is alive, he is experiencing these detonations from his position. At approximately 5:20 in the morning, Chapman recovers and begins to engage the enemy. Bunker 1 is on the right side center of the screen and Bunker 2 to the left near the screen center. It will never be known what caused his incapacitation and recovery. Of the two rounds that originally wounded him, at least one was mortal, and at this time he is experiencing severe blood loss and shock. Despite that, he begins his one-man stand against 24 enemy combatants. During this time, Chapman initiates a series of radio calls, many of which are heard by a fellow combat controller and teammate of his and Delta Force operators on a nearby summit. Despite this combat controller's replies, Chapman never acknowledges whether because of damage to his equipment or himself will never be known. This new angle and footage shows Chapman at the top, identified by the green dot under the tree at Bunker 1. The lower center of the screen shows the first enemy fighter who is about to charge Chapman in the hopes of killing the American. The timestamp at the bottom shows it is now 6:05 in the morning and fully light. He's been fighting alone now for 40+ minutes and has received more gunshot and shrapnel wounds as a result of the fierce combat. This scene shows the second of several enemy charges. In this stunning display of determination and courage, Chapman can be seen fighting hand-to-hand with the fighter. In the larger screen display can be seen additional enemy moving on to the summit. But right now, John Chapman is fighting for his life. 6 minutes later, in this new shot, Chapman can hear another helicopter approaching the summit. He is in the bottom center of the screen underneath the tree and can be seen in the magnified inset box as he begins his desperate final stand to save the lives of the 18 men on the helicopter. The red dots are enemy fighters. John begins engaging the enemy in multiple directions and is rapidly approaching the last of his ammunition. The helicopter contains a quick reaction force comprised of Rangers, pararescuemen, and another combat controller. It is now 6:13 and the helicopter is short final. The enemy is desperately trying to displace Chapman so they can put heavy weapons or rocket-propelled grenades in Bunker 1 while simultaneously engaging the helicopter. With the choice to save his life or the lives of his unknown comrades, Chapman makes the decision to climb out of the bunker and begin firing in multiple directions, as can be seen in the inset. Suffering from as many as a dozen wounds, Chapman is in fact already in the process of dying. As he fights, the helicopter is struck by a rocket-propelled grenade and makes a remarkable controlled crash just below Chapman and the summit. Chapman, now off-screen, continues to cover his comrades as they pour out of the stricken helicopter. Some of them are fatally shot as they exit. These images, with Chapman fighting the enemy at close quarter, are the last to show him alive and in this heroic act, thus qualifying for his second Medal of Honor. Ultimately, Chapman would expend all but the last few rounds of his ammunition, until, finally, after 16 bullet and shrapnel wounds, Chapman succumbs when he is shot through the heart. We will never know his final thoughts or words, but what we do know is his decisions and actions single-handedly saved the lives of 23 comrades. For more information about John Chapman's amazing story and the details about this mission, visit danschillingbooks.com or your favorite book retailer to obtain a copy of the Chronicle of his life, Alone at Dawn.
Yeesh.
Still get goosebumps. Never goes away.
Yeah, it's intense.
It's clear. All right, so these are the the handful of clips. So he interviews with Jennifer Griffin. I've got a few. Here, we talked about this, so I'm gonna play these kind of in a chronological order. I tell you that he says that he rescued the air crew.
You know, we crash landed in the valley and had to call another helicopter to come pick us up. And my mission at that point, you know, originally had my first mission was observation post. Second mission then becomes rescuing my teammate. Third mission was now the rescue of that air crew. So that's what I did first. I rescued that air crew, got them to a safe location. To do that, I had to get another helicopter.
Bullshit. So, in a situation like that, yeah, he's a team leader, right? So there's a leadership aspect. The person who affects the rescue is John Chapman. He was the guy who was talking to us. And when you hear Alan Mack recount it, he says it the same way I explain it. Let's do another. All right. When you talk about his mistakes and recounting everything, he even goes as far to say that Alan Mack flies them back to rescue Roberts. So the same pilot.
It was at that time that the pilot of the first aircraft that got shot volunteered to fly us. His name was Al. Volunteered to fly us back. It's a very, very thing I needed. So grateful that he did. Great amount of courage to take this guy. Man, he just got shot down. Now he's going to fly right back into exactly what he knows what he's getting into, and he did. Flew us right back.
Nope, he didn't. So Alan Mack captures a number of interviews. He says a dude named Jethro was the pilot of Razor 04, and that's who flew him back. Alan Mack, when he's asked, where were you when this happened? He's like, I was at the safe house watching it on video. Let's go. Here's one where he's talking about the LZ.
made the decision we're going to go. Amazing thing for the pilot from the first aircraft that got shot down was standing right there. He said, "I'm flying you in." Think of this. So the guy just got shot down, right? And now he's like, "Nope, I'm going to fly it back in." And it's absolutely, I needed that because he's the only guy on this aircraft knows where we're going. So, I mean, you think of what that guy's going through. I asked him, I was like, "Hey, any place else for us to land?" What do you think he says? "Yeah, no. Yeah, we got to go to the same spot." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, great."
Wow.
Yes, and we launched.
Not true. So, one, Alan Mack didn't fly him back in. Jethro did. Two, there were two other known locations that they could have landed because Razor 02 landed at one of them, and we were marking the other one that we wanted him to go to. And where Razor 02 infilled to was actually the spot that that Slab was wanting to go to, that he would have, patrolled up to the Overwatch position. By the way, that interview was in 2022, and he was talking with Chris Cassidy, who's the current president and CEO of the National Medal of Honor Museum. That it took place at the University of Texas at Arlington. This is the one that I can't stand. So his story evolved to the point, when I talk about the false narrative of the Navy. So here it is right here.
Headset comes off. I remember pilot, right, telling me, "Team leader, good luck." Hang that up, put my helmet on. This way, I mean, it was really pretty controlled at this point, right? I mean, we're getting shot at, but helmet on, strap up, I'm the first one off, right? Because that's the line, right? And first one off, and and then the games began.
Any evidence of Neil at that point? Or did you know where he was relative to the ramp?
No.
No idea?
Had no idea. All we knew is we had a good idea where the trees were and some of the terrain. So the initial plan was to get on the ground, get in a group, and use that gunship flying overhead and its camera. It would tell us where the heat sources are, and then we'd go to the heat sources, right, and look for him. That part fell apart immediately because we were taken under heavy fire from everywhere. We're out in the open. There's no cover and concealment out there. Pretty much right off the nose of that helicopter right there is where we were. And, so now, we're in deep in a big firefight. My CCT controller's killed immediately right next to me. Beginning of the fight, a belt-fed gun opens up in front of us. The bullets that struck him came from the same gun. You can see, if all you come up here, you can see the bullet holes in my pants that are over here on the table. Pass through my clothes and pass. I didn't get hit at all, but it hit some of my other gear, and kills him instantly. He goes down. So we get in a big firefight with a bunker up on top and throwing grenades, going back and forth. I take another couple of wounded, and realize.
I'll stop it though. That's the meat of the lie. You could actually, Eric Deming, the guy that I mentioned, we joke about this. You don't want to turn slab lies and videos into a drinking game because you won't be able to make it out of the room.
You'll die.
Yeah. Let's see here. So, are you familiar with the some of the issues where? So there's two stories that have been captured about Slab. One of them has to do with the head on a platter, and the other one shooting a corpse. Do you know these?
No.
All right. So watch this one from Jennifer Griffin. This is about shooting a corpse.
I'm going to read you something that I'm sure you're familiar with because it's been published. This is from a transcript of an interview you did with Malcolm McPherson for his 2005 book on Roberts Ridge. And it says, talk about funny stuff that we did after I shot this dude in the head. There was a guy that had his feet, just his feet sticking out of some little rut or something over here. He was dead, but I mean, you know, got nerves. I shot him 20 times in the legs, and every time you kick him or shoot him, he would kick up, and you could see his body twitching, all that. It was like a game. Good therapy. Why'd you say that?
Well, that doesn't sound exactly, but what I remember, if you could hear the whole clip of that, you would have heard that that was an enemy combatant. He was still actively engaging our forces that were only feet away from him. And that was just a small piece of the larger story. But I can tell you, of that 26 years of service, every day of it, I served with honor and integrity. Every day.
So you think this was taken out of context?
I know it was taken out of context.
All right, and now let's give you he said, you know, if you could hear the whole thing, well, guess what we have?
Slabinski was devastated by Robert's death.
This is Matt Cole.
Frankly, according to sources who spoke with him at the time, he sought revenge. He wanted to go back out on the battlefield and get payback. And we unearthed, in the course of reporting, some exclusive audio that had never been found before of Slabinski giving an interview to an author who was writing a book about Roberts Ridge, in which he describes a third operation that happens after Objective Bull, in which they ambushed a group of al-Qaeda fighters who had been on top of Takur Ghar, who had been in the Battle of Roberts Ridge. And he was a sniper who led a sniper team at the time, and they killed roughly 18 or 19 al-Qaeda fighters in eastern Afghanistan in mid-March 2002. And in the audio, what you hear him talk about is the operation as payback and revenge, essentially, for what happened on Roberts Ridge, as a way for the guys and his men to get their confidence back, as I think he says is to get back in the saddle again.
Let's go to the SEAL Team 6 member, Britt Slabinski, here describing the aftermath of an operation to take down a convoy they believed was filled with al-Qaeda fighters trying to escape to Pakistan. Slabinski and the team of snipers had killed, nearly 20 al-Qaeda fighters.
After I shot this dude in the head, there was a guy that had his feet, just his feet sticking out of some little rut or something over here. I mean, he was dead, but I mean, you know, people got nervous. I shot him about 20 times in the legs, and every time you kick him or shoot him, he would kip up, and you could see his body twitch and all that. And it was like a game, like, yeah, look at this dude. And the guy was just, you know, I mean, again, it was, yeah, good therapy. Yeah, I'll bet it was really good therapy for everybody that was there.
So I don't think it was taken out of context at all. What's significant about it is that, you know, to be awarded the Medal of Honor, you have to be of upstanding character and all that kind of stuff. Well, there's that story, and there's another one. They call it the head on the platter. When these things happen, he was never formally held accountable for anything. So the Navy could say he had a clean record, you know, but they never disciplined their own. So in this case, so when they do the the review on his records to see whether or not he's, you know, legally qualified to be awarded such Medal of Honor, there's no paper trail to show that he had been taken to captain's mast or court-martialed or whatever for those acts, and those things would have been considered war crimes. So he's right there on the video. His words, not mine. Anyway, when we went in and briefed them in September of 16, you know, that we know that the Chapman Medal of Honor upgrade is underway, doing the research. You know, there's Valor Review Boards, all that kind of stuff. when we're getting ready to leave that meeting, Captain Jeremy Williams looks over at Britt, like we're right near the doorway, getting ready to walk out. He's like, "Huh, maybe we should look at upgrading yours." And so when Britt gets asked, about when he first learned that he was going to be awarded the medal, it was in December of 2016, like not 90 days after this. Secretary of the Navy Ray Mavis goes out to their his old unit, their Virginia Beach, and shows up and makes the announcement that he approved it for upgrade. And so it's going to leave the Navy and go through the DoD channels at that point. But that was literally in December. So I can tell you that you don't go from idea of an award of Medal of Honor to SecNav approval in 90 days. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's a long, yeah.
Yeah. So they were sitting on this, had to have been, and perhaps they had tried to do it before. I wouldn't have been directly involved in any of that. And honestly, like I don't know what the official content of his justification package is. Like, the things that we see online, you'll see the citation. Well, there's an entire package that'll go in that'll have all the rest of the data and information and so on. And the way I equated this situation is that, the Air Force, when both of them went forward, we mentioned the service crosses and the credit for taking out Bunker 1, right? So if that's the baseline, once the Air Force research is done, now we know this much more about John Chapman. And it's significant. Well, that's the reason why the Navy wanted to stop back at the original findings, and they wouldn't agree to this other stuff because they didn't have any new information about SLAP. There's nothing new or additional. So then they just draw out the story. And when you look at his citation, it talks about the marshaling of assets for the recovery. When he's saying that I rescued the air crew, that's a far stretch. And then when he talks about being in combat for 14 hours and protecting his team, well, shit, the fight was on top of the mountain. They had withdrawn from it. Now, were they still in the zone? Sure, but they weren't under fire. And so it makes it look like he was in a firefight for 14 hours. Well, he wasn't. The Rangers were, but Slab and the team weren't. So it's one of those where I think what needs to happen at this point is a couple of things. One, stop stealing John's valor and give him his due at the National Medal of Honor Museum. It's significant. When you look at all of that, you can see the video narrated by Dan. That's impactful. When you can see that level of valor and know the rest of the story and so on, like that's flat. Give him his credit, stop stealing his valor, and then ultimately there needs to be a review of Slab's medal. Like I say, give it to an unbiased review panel and see is the truth really there. If he's truly worthy of a Medal of Honor, then let that dog lie and go for it. But if it's as far of a stretch as the false narrative that the Navy continues to push out there, like for him to sit there and continue to say that John died right beside me, like that's in 2022. John was awarded his Medal of Honor in August of 2018. Like it's known, it's proven. Like he's got a Medal of Honor. So stop with this nonsense that he died within 3 minutes. It's just the convenient version of the story so that he doesn't have to say we left a teammate behind.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but that's just what happened. So anyway, I'm hoping there's been contact made with Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna out of Tampa, Florida, hoping that she can muster the support to have Congress order a review. There's petitions out there. I can send you the links for all this stuff. The shirt that I wear, Mako 30 Charlie, it's from First Dare organization. They were originally a nonprofit set up to support special tactics on the Air Force side, but on May the 1st this year, they expanded their charter to be any and all veterans and first responders. So if you care to support that cause, or you want one of these kick-ass shirts that commemorate John Chapman, got a picture of him on the back.
Hell yeah.
It's a pretty sweet way to be able to show support and speak truth to power. So now every time I sit
send me
here and
one,
do a
I'll wear it on the
podcast,
show. Yeah.
I'm wearing this shirt. Dang it, you're gonna have to see this forever.
Send one to me, man. I'll wear it.
Absolutely. Well, that's what I got for you, Tommy.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate your time, man.
No, absolutely. Yeah. There's like the ideal version of, I have the ideal version of my everyday. Like, I'm gonna do this workout and I'm gonna count my calories, and then like I know that it's more of an approximation of how close can I get.
Yeah.
Ideally, it seems more like for me, I'm more concerned about like the credit going to Chapman. I'm less concerned about, Slab being reprimanded. I mean, again, there's the idea of I want this and that and this and that, and it's like Christmas. It's like, man, I'm in New England. Sometimes you do get a white Christmas. It'd be like, man, I really hope we get a white Christmas. But you know what's better is that I'm with my brothers and my parents and my sister-in-law, and everyone's healthy and happy, and we all got here safe. Yeah, I'll take that. Would it be cool if it kind of snowed too? Sure. I'm willing to take the win, That's kind of how I look at it, is like primary, auxiliary. There it is, like, and I give credit to Chapman, honor him, no pun intended.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That additional wish list, if we're talking Christmas, that's the Jeremy Williams aspect.
Yeah.
The connective tissue from Tim Zemansky, who's retired after Matt Cole's book came out. Zemansky didn't get his next post, and he ended up retiring a little bit more quietly. I've got a good friend that sits in the joint leadership chain pretty darn high up, that I flew with during this time period, and I'm hoping that that GO sees these things and understands the truth of what's going on, because if Jeremy Williams continues to be able to fleet up, then all we're doing is saying that all of this crap is okay.
Yeah.
And if you ever want to return any sense of actual honor and integrity to their brand, you got to get those few bad apples out of there, because they're not all bad, and they're still, like we said, like, they're amazing, top tier 1. We need them. You need special capabilities to bring bad things to bad people. But you can do it with honor and integrity, and you can this blows my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and my analysis is just from a complete layman who is just in the last 2 hours learned about this. So that's kind of my reflexive analysis. But dude, I'd love to have you back on. Maybe I can digest it a little more.
Sure.
But yeah, send me all the links to everything that you want, and I'll put it in the description. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'd love to do it. Yeah.
You want me to just text them to you?
Yeah. Just text me. I'll copy and paste them. Right. I'd love to have you back on and to maybe dive into it a little more. Just again, because I'm just now learning all of this, so I don't want to give like a definitive take. Not that anybody gives a shit about my take, but for me, let me digest it a little more and then come back to it. But yeah, no, it does seem like there's some kind of undeniable, and it's not a he said, she said. It's like an infrared video. It's like, I mean, it's
exactly.
Exactly.
Like,
I wasn't there. It's like Facebook really kind of started to get its legs when I was in high school, and it was a lot harder to lie about, and you didn't throw a party when your parents are out of town, and they're like, well, why is there a picture of a beer can pyramid in the living room? It's a lot. There's nowhere to go. and the only move is to own up, and you go, yeah.
there were so many funny sound bites that came out of that September 16 meeting with them. One of them was as I was presenting the gunship footage, it literally showed his strobe and him moving into the bunker. It's they they turned around and they're like, "Yeah, we were there, and that's not how we remember it." And I was like, at this point, you guys have broken contact. So technically you're not there. You're on the other side of the mountain. We were there. Our sensor, there's the footage, there's the strobe, there's John crawling in. So you can't lie to me.
Yeah, there's
you can't refute that.
Yeah, and whether you were lying intentionally or whether you truly remembered something happening this way, and everybody's memory is flawed, adrenaline compounds
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Regardless of
And
what it is, once you're faced with that evidence, the only respectable move is to own up. You got to go, man, I legitimately thought differently. Or you don't even have to say it, but you can be like, oh, yeah, that seems right. Yeah, you're caught with your pants down.
Oh, man,
the only thing to
they're-
do is to go, yeah, I did that. Because at a certain
Yeah,
point, it's like when you're just like lying to your parents through your teeth. They know you're lying, you know you're lying, they know you know, and at a certain point, it's like all there really is now is to like salvage some honor and to go,
Yeah.
no, I was lying because I didn't want to get in trouble because I wanted to drink underage. It's like, thank you.
Yeah. No, their immediate response is that old school deny everything, demand proof, and immediately make counter accusations.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but excuse me. Let's wrap this up for now, and
Sure.
it'll air tomorrow. I'll text it to you when it's up. Text me those links right now though, and
Yeah.
I'll put it in the description.
I'll do it before I even move away.
Hell yeah, yeah. Well, dude, I appreciate your
Oh.
time. Yeah.
This is one thing that I was going to show you. So this is a quote from John's yearbook.
Give of yourself before taking from someone else. Yeah. Yeah.
So that quote was attributed to him after all this stuff came to light, and the family had shared that story. And so I thought that was kind of significant, especially when you look at the shade that gets thrown via the Navy false narrative via Slab and his platform and so forth. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Can't believe that.
That's
Words to live by.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap this up. I appreciate your time, and yeah, we'll do it again.
Alrighty. I am texting you these right now, and until next time, buddy. I appreciate the time. Thank you again, bud.
Appreciate the time out of your day, and appreciate what you're doing.